Okay, so now we're going to prep a pork tenderloin. Show you how to prep a pork tenderloin for cooking. I just took this out of the package. This is what it looks like. As you see, you got white stuff here, and you got some fat, what looks like fat here. We like to trim these very clean, so I like to trim everything off. So some of the stuff comes off pretty easy. You can almost pull it with your fingers if you look like this. You get a little bit of fat here. You can get your finger underneath and pull it. I like to use a knife. I have a boning knife right here. Now, the fat's really not the important thing to get off, although I like to pull it, get it all off, and cut it all off. This here is called the silver skin. It's very tough. It's not worth leaving on. It doesn't get any more tender if you cook it longer. So I like to cut that off completely, and the best way to do that is to use I have a boning knife here, and I use a boning knife. I get it underneath the fat, or underneath that silver skin like that, and you just pull away till you get to the end, and then it gives you something to hold on to. And then you're holding onto it with this hand, and you can just get your knife underneath and you cut right down. You don't get a lot of meat. There's just a very little meat stuck to it, but you cut that right off. Like I said, it's not going to cook well. It doesn't help your dish at all. It might even have a little bit of a bitter taste to it, but you just cut it right off. I just go right down the line, cut everything off that's fat or silver skin, and I think the cleaner the better when it comes to pork tenderloin. You know, it's nothing that you really need in a dish. You don't want silver skin in your dish. You don't want it to be chewy, especially if you're cooking for someone else as well. But trimming it's pretty important. I mean, if in the restaurant we trim it real clean. We trim it very, very clean. If there's a little bit of fat on there, we don't care. But we're so used to cutting them up that we cut it all off, you know. It comes out pretty good. I mean, if you get to the end, there's always the head of the tenderloin up here, and there's always a little bit of this extra chunk like that. I'm going to be doing a saute dish today, so I can cut right down the line. You can see the little bit of fat that's on the side here. I trim that right off like that. But I can use these other pieces for saute or pork stir fry. Depends on what you're doing. Today I'm going to be doing a pork piccata, or piccata style. I do tend to change the dishes a little bit from original recipes. I don't like to do it always the same way, or the same way as everybody and their grandmother cooks it, although I have no problem with doing it. I just don't always do it the same way. So there it is. That pork tenderloin's pretty clean. I would be happy with that. I wouldn't need to prep it anymore. If I'm doing like pork piccata, I'm going to be doing medallions. I like to cut it on the bias, so it's at an angle like this, and I cut it like that. Just cut some medallions out like that. Now, some people like to pound them out, which you can do. I cut them pretty thin, and I can just pound them out with my hand if I want. So, I mean, you can leave them just like that. These are pretty thin. They come out good, and I flour them up, and then I saute them, and I make my dish. There's nothing wrong with leftovers here either. So, and there you have it. This pork is prepped. I'm going to be sauteing this up for pork piccata, but you can always also use it for a pork stir fry or whatever you like. Obviously, if you get enough for your dish and you still have a chunk, you can always keep this. And I could roast this off, and maybe I'll use it for like pork tacos or something. You get like 3 or 4 out of that. So, you know, with all the other ingredients, I put some cilantro in there and stuff like that. So I have enough here for probably my 2 piccatas. I'm going to keep this piece, and I'll make a couple pork tacos for lunch tomorrow. All right, well, that's the video on how to prep pork tenderloin. I hope you like it.